Hello everybody, it's Colton here. I'm going to do a quick replay analysis for a player from r/all things Terran. We're going to be looking at things from Mars's perspective. He's a Diamond Terran playing against a Platinum Zerg. We're just going to kind of watch him and see what he sees and hopefully help him out a little bit along the way. A little note, I know a lot of people like to use the WCS replay thing, but I like the nostalgic feel. I like to do this sometimes too, for the true nostalgia. Nostalgia, whatever. Okay, so we're going to fast forward a little bit because I know for a fact this is the third time I've watched this. He's going to open up with a Reaper expand. So we don't need to see anything like too crazy. We will slow down once his SCV gets over to that base, and we'll see kind of what he does as far as scouting. Alright, so he scouts one gas, doesn't really look at the other gas. I mean, TvZ you don't really need to, I guess. But it is good to know. Okay, so now we got that Reaper going. His Natural Command Center had 20 supply normal. This is a really cool thing to note. He gets a Marine out, one Marine, and then a reactor, and it still lines up perfectly with the completion of the factory. So then he has this Marine to deny any overlords or anything. So let's jump back in. This Reaper doing a little bit, doesn't get any kills. Oh. No, can't be too greedy with the Reaper. And now he needs to be thinking, when will my opponent be taking a third? The standard, if they're not going to go for a 2-base timing, is going to be a 3-minute for a 3-15-minute third hatchery. If it's any later than that, I always like to go in and kind of scout and see what the opponent's doing. So Tech Lab on the racks, he's going to swap off, of course, to get the double Hellions, and then a Starport. Everything so far pretty normal, nothing crazy, but then here in a second we're going to see something pretty cool. Something pretty cool, I said. Still not seeing this something pretty cool. So he knows that his opponent doesn't have a third base, so he didn't see any drones coming out of there. So he needs to kind of, it looks like he is kind of preparing for this 2-base attack, but he still could be active with the Hellions, maybe not 2, but maybe getting 4 Hellions and then moving out on the map, which would be nice. We're going to see Banshee and Cloak,
add-on complete.
And then Armory is going to come down eventually. There it goes. And so, like, right now, I think he needs to be moving out with the Hellions. You don't need 6 Hellions. Like, 4 is plenty to be going around the map and kind of scouting, because he needs to be thinking, like, does my opponent have a third? Because that will pretty much, like, kind of, like, give him a clue. If he could scout, if the third is down, he'll kind of know what's going on, but of course there is no third, so there's really no information right now. Literally the only information this whole game we have is that there's a spawning pool. If he would have gone in at about 3 minutes and 40 seconds, that's whenever, if they're going for a 2-base roach, that's about when the roach warren is going to go down from what I've been reading. I'm not going to say that's like the definite answer, but just from a little bit of research, it's 340 for the roach warren. And right here, whenever you have this small force right here, there's a, well, if you get the armor, you kind of have to commit to attack, but whenever you have Hellions like this, the things you need to be doing are denying creep spread If he doesn't have, we're gonna do this really quick. If he didn't have this, you would run in and do, you know, run bys. You just need to be active with this, but against this army's useless. And so we're gonna see he does back off. Lost a bit there. And another thing to note, if he sits this right out here, doesn't like go back home with it, really, really good play. Now we see the third coming down. We're gonna see double E base are down, double gas will be taken soon. Right here, money does kind of skyrocket, and I will admit it happens with me too. Once you get this 2 base saturation, my money like skyrockets. I get my third, I do all this, and I'm like, oh shit, next thing I know, boom, I have 700 minerals because I've been looking at this Hellion Force. So just kind of make sure you're going back and doing your stuff back at home, because that's pretty damn important. Because right now you're trying to get this economic lead, and you are going to be ahead once you get this third landed, but you're not really taking full advantage of this economic lead. Back into his view. These links go in, it's kind of annoying. Ravager's coming.
Our SCVs are under attack.
And one thing that could have been done right here, you go all the way back home with your Hellions. Whenever these guys are going to take care of these links, obviously. You could have ran back a little bit, like ran to here maybe, and went back and saw, like, is he committing? Because you can see he kind of is, but it's just, like, good to know. Like, originally you were down here and then you retreated. If you would have kind of stayed with his army a little bit, just so where they're in sight, you would know, is he committing to this attack, or is he just using these Ravagers defensively? But at the same time, you know he doesn't have a third base, so that also is kind of a huge tell. And that brings me to another point. He doesn't have a third base. Bunkers would have been awesome right here. Because if you would have scanned this right now and saw, holy shit, this is just now going down, bunker, bunker, bunker. Like, immediately. Like I said, 3:30 is about the standard time for a third hatch. But you're just doing everything pretty, you know, pretty alright. Just, you need to, like, throw down your stuff a little bit faster, and this is good. You held it off, but I felt like it could have gone a little bit more in your favor with a couple bunkers. Because bunkers are, you know, static defense isn't a bad investment at all.
Upgrade complete.
So one thing I like to do personally, if I held off this attack just now, I'm thinking, okay, so his attack failed. I'm going to kind of poke, not necessarily commit to an attack, but you could be dropping over here, because think about it. He just attacked and pulled away. Where's his army? His army is way out of position. Like, whenever he first pushes back, you know, he's going to be like down here, right? You have enough Marines to load up a medevac and just fly it away down here, this way, or this way. Because his army's out of position, so why not just take advantage of the fact that you held that off, and he's not going to be able to do anything about your army dropping or whatever. So it's just a little thing to note. Macro's getting back on track. A second factory wouldn't be bad to get right now, just because it would be nice to have either double siege production or getting double mines, and getting drilling claws would be good. You scout, you see, okay, his third base didn't have very many drones, and he has no fourth. And if he's not going for an economy, which we know he's not, because look, he only has what, like 1, 2, 3, 6 drones here, so he's not really going for an economy. So in StarCraft, you could go for an economy, you could go for an army, or you could go for upgrades. You can't really do all three, so you need to be thinking, no economy, so what are the 2 things he's going to be doing? Upgrades and an army. And you right now, you're going for economy and upgrades, so that's why if we look at here, he's pretty far ahead in the army supply. But you also do have a quality army, so you're not too worried. But that's just something you need to like really think about, is like he's definitely planning to be really aggressive.
Additional.
So you held this off really well. Sorry about that.
Additional supply depots required.
Oh my gosh, sorry. I just upgraded Windows 10.
Additional supply depots required.
So pretty good, pretty solid so far. Right now, again, kind of your macro slips up. You have your 3, that's good. But you still have 800 minerals that aren't being used. You aren't producing from anything. So your macro kind of slips every once in a while. And I mean, mine does too. I'm in Diamond 2, so I don't have the greatest macro. But it's something that we need to work on. Yeah, let's just go back into it.
Mineral field depleted.
One thing that has kind of driven me wild, since this is the 3rd time I've seen this, you could just send 1 Marine to go and kill this, or anything, just to make sure he doesn't have... Because he could Nidus you, since he has that in position.
Add-on complete.
So still no 4th, so definitely need to be worried. Oh, so he has this 4th. He doesn't take... This is the normal 4th on this base, I'd say. This one's kind of strange to take. So you're going to go and try to do some damage here, which is good. It actually wouldn't have been a bad move to siege, have your siege tanks right here, because they would have attacked this mineral line, and then dropped in here with your Bioforce. But instead, you do something that should not be done. You engage on creep. So let's see how many scans you have. You don't have a scan yet, not yet. You almost have 2 scans to deny this creep. But you ran full force onto this creep, and I mean, you lost a lot more. You're going to do this counter drop, which is actually going to do some pretty good damage. But just, you shouldn't really engage on creep like that.
Complete.
I mean, like, this does a surprising amount of damage, even though it's, like, the opponent
Mineral field.
literally just like sat there and watched this drop going into his base. Kind of funny if you think about it. And then here's another thing. You kind of just let it die. So you lost so much just because you didn't pick up. Like, let's just rewind a little bit and see what you were paying attention to. So you're watching the drop, good. He has, you're doing some pretty big damage. He sends this army, and then you just give up on it to look at your bases. And I know I've been talking a lot about macro and how important it is, but this is like an easy, like, just select it all, right click into your minivacs, boost it out. You could have saved that whole shebang.
Our SCVs are under attack.
Ready for dust off.
So you are securing your 4th, which is good. And then here's another thing to note, right? So you see this, right? If you would have just picked up your units right there, you would have had units to deny this and kill this. And then look how, like, better off you would have been. He'd be on 1 mining base, let's say 1.5 mining bases, 2.5 bases, compared to your 1, 2, 3, almost you have 4 bases. If you would have picked up your units down here after this drop, you would have been so far ahead economically. But you kind of just like let them go the waste, honestly. But we'll just keep watching. You're doing good with your upgrades. One thing that would have been nice is if you would have had some turrets in your mineral lines.
Upgrade complete.
Ready for dust off.
You're doing pretty good, you know, economically. You're still ahead, and then here we see this little push. So, and you're gonna respond pretty well to this actually. You load up your medevacs, and then you go and well, you didn't load them up, but you could have loaded them up and been there a lot faster actually. But I understand whenever you're in the game, you're like a little bit frazzled whenever you see this coming. So you might not necessarily be thinking about, oh my gosh, load up my medevacs and I'll get there like 10 times faster. But you still do a pretty good job defending it. So I'm not gonna like really like complain about this too much. You are producing from your starport, which is so the starport's kind of not doing anything. But you held that off. Good job. And then you knew your opponent's army was out of position, so you did this awesome drop. So that's really good for you too. And then you go and you drop that 4th. I'm liking that. And here's one thing I would note as well. You had your army here, you had a drop here, right? Look at all his army. Where is it? Literally everything he has. If you look in the other bases, nothing. Everything he has is defending this. So with this force, you could be denying creep. You could let's see what you have at home. You don't have very many medevacs, so you kind of slipped up on your medevac production. But you could have been denying creep, you could have dropped over here, because this guy has like major 1A syndrome. Still doing really good on the upgrades. That's something I'm actually like kind of bad at. And I love that how defended this space is. And here you go. And here you're kind of doing what I was talking about. Kind of. You're pulling the army out of position. And you're denying creep here. Oh, there's his army. Not the worst engagement. And then, cool. So his army's out of position. I'm going to go drop. That's awesome right there. And then you even have this drop coming by. But one thing to note about this is that this is going to be cleared up, right? Like, this is going to be cleared up, and then this is going to come in, right? Think about it this way. You're doing a drop here, it's going to get cleaned up. Then you're doing a drop here, which is going to get cleaned up. Because it's easy to say, okay, I have my army on 3A over here. Oh, here's the second drop, 3A over here. If you would have dropped here and timed this one at the exact same time, the Zerg's going to panic. It's like, oh my gosh, I have all my units on the same hotkey. How am I supposed to... Sorry about that little stumble. How am I supposed to defend both at once? So that's one thing that you should kind of think about, is lining up your drops to be a little bit, not like exactly together, but a little bit closer together, because look, he cleans that up, then you drop this one in. But then you're doing this, which is awesome. You're sending this army there. And these are going to die. It kind of stinks, because there was a lot of units in there. But his army is out of position, so you destroyed this 4th, which is freaking awesome. And like you're in a really, really, really good position right now.
Mineral field depleted.
Liberation is at hand.
And you're getting another base. So everything right now is like looking really, really good for you. So far, it's just like a couple things. Just lining up your drops a little bit better and just kind of attacking where he's not. Like, not sending your whole army to attack, but just sending little drops, like if you know his army's out of position. That's why not exploit somebody for that. Okay, you see his army's there, and then this is why I was talking about having turrets in your mineral line. You have, what is this? It looks like 10 Mutalisk, which isn't really that much. 2 turrets kills that. So that's kind of bad right there. And you could, you know, you still have this army going. It's easy to just go, if you have your hotkeys, if you have F2, pick up your army, or I guess it would be F3, pick up army, F2, attack, and then rally some Marines like right here to go in and stem and attack and kill that while doing this. But right here, you are on creep. You're like in the fucking dungeon of creep. You're like the Amazon forest, no paddle, no food. You're fucked, and you're putting yourself in this position. Because look what happens. You're fighting on creep. You lost everything. Like everything's about to die. That's exactly why you never find on creep. Right there, you lose. That's where you lost the game. You were so far ahead in every aspect. I mean, your upgrades were even, yeah, but you had the economy. You know, like I said, another factory would have hurt you. But you know, you have the macro. It's pretty good. You have your upgrades going for you. You have way more bases than the Zerg. But if you take one bad engagement on creep, then it totally throws a game. Which is why you don't fight on creep. If you see this creep spread, you have an army here denying creep, and then another one like dropping here. So we'll kind of play out the rest of the game.
Our SCVs are under attack. Mineral field depleted.
He kills out eBay, but who cares? You already got your +3/+3 right before that died, which is pretty good for you. And again, so right here, this factory is not being used. If you had tanks, like let's look at his unit composition. Roaches died a tank. Ultralisk, not that great against tanks. That would have kind of helped you out a little bit. Because you're still in a pretty good position, I'd say. Like, your army supply is pretty far behind, but if you had tanks and like some proper defense, maybe some liberators in defender mode right here, you could easily hold off this. This isn't really that bad if you think about it. And then that would have just won you the game because you are ahead in economy. You have way more bases than the Zerg. The Zerg only has one. Like, what? There's like, how many drones are mining right here? 8 drones there, and then a couple there. Like, he's not really ahead in the, as far as income goes. You're a whole 200 minerals ahead. So if you had a couple tanks in your composition, if you remember to produce from your factory, you could have held this off and won the game, essentially. But right now, because you have these Marines, you're behind. And whenever you're behind, there's really 2 ways to play. You're either going to expand aggressively, which you're kind of doing. You have this base ready to go over here. You have this base here. Or you could play aggressively. So, you know, drops here, 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 dropping everywhere. But you're doing the economic approach, which is good. But if you're doing that approach, then you also need to set up your defense a little bit better, because right now, one, you're all clumped together. So a couple Banelings, which, well, he doesn't have Banelings, but a couple Banes would kind of Shrek you if they got in here. You need to put this in defender mode, tanks, but you're really, like, actually pretty damn good player. It's just a couple of things to note. It's just production, really, is one of the big things. I don't think you should have moved out right there. I think you should have kind of set up a defensive stance and kind of like took note of how many bases does my opponent have. You actually did lose that command center, which, oh well. Still ahead. But then right here, he streams that, and he's only 20 supply ahead. I mean, it's all army though. But with the proper composition, you would have held this off easily. So, big things are, don't fight on creep ever. That's what lost you the game. It wasn't necessarily that Ultralisk are so good, it's just you fought on creep and threw that army. Secondly, time your drops so that they're a little bit closer together, so that if your opponent has, like, this guy, just 1A syndrome, everything's grouped to 1, you're going to do some big damage. And then thirdly, just constantly producing from all your structures. You had moments where your starport wasn't producing, or moments where your factory wasn't producing. So if you fix those couple plays, you're going to, like, really, really soar ahead of pretty much everyone you play against. So thanks for watching. I hope this helped a little bit, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.